Unfortunately, I think the question that's starting to arise amongst Red Sox fans is this Red Sox team in trouble? What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Red Seat Radio. My name is Corbin, and thank you very much for clicking on this video. This weekend wasn't exactly good for the Red Sox. They dropped 2 out of 3 games to the Arizona Diamondbacks, only managing to scrap together the series finale, and that didn't exactly have a good effect on where their standings are. Right now, they're 79 and 65 on the year, 14 games above 500, good for the second wildcard spot still, now just 3.5 games above the Seattle Mariners, and they did lose a game to the New York Yankees, now officially 1.5 games back of that top wild card spot. The really only good news in terms of your standings this weekend is that the Toronto Blue Jays also lost the series. The unfortunate part is it was to the New York Yankees, but the fortunate part of this is you didn't lose any ground in the divisional race. You're still 3.5 games back of those guys, but it's hard to sit here and say that what we saw this weekend from the Red Sox, to put it bluntly, was anything but lifeless and lost baseball. And I get it. You win this final game, and obviously, as our friends over at Section 10 have said for a very long time here, you win that final game, you avoid that sweep, you end up having a bit of a happy flight here, and hopefully that turns into something, which isn't totally wrong, but it's also impossible to ignore that the Red Sox, they're just not playing good baseball right now. They're 3-3 in the month of September, which is the first time that you don't have an above 500 record in a month. Now, obviously, you're just 6 games into this month, so it's hard to say this is exactly what the Red Sox are going to look like for the rest of the season here, but, Red Sox fans, it's a little bit of PTSD, I think. If you're an older Red Sox fan, you remember some of the teams back in your childhood or potentially back in the mid-2000s or even 2010s where you sit there and you look good for most of the season and then one bad thing starts to happen and all of a sudden this team collapses, i.e. an injury to your best player. If you're a newer Red Sox fan, you're kind of sitting here going, oh no, this is what I'm used to now, right? Where the Red Sox, they look good for an extended period of time during a season and then all of a sudden something happens and they end up, with a sub 500 record and at the bottom of this division. While that's totally fair to sit there and sort of have these unfortunate flashbacks, I don't know what other way to put it here, with this Red Sox team right now, especially after this Roman Anthony injury. The Red Sox, again, they just don't look like a great baseball team. Since he went down, the Red Sox have been held to a scoreless inning in 29 of 36 innings they've played. Their pitching staff as a whole, this series specifically, threw to the tune of a 6.12 ERA with a 4.66 FIP. They had 13 walks to 20 strikeouts. They were putting a ton of free passes on the bases. They gave up 17 earned runs, and the first time for a bit, the Red Sox really started to let their poor defensive play affect the outcome of these games. Only 2 unearned runs this series, but there were absolutely plays that should have been made that weren't made that ended up eventually leading to earned runs for the pitching staff, right? So yeah, the pitching staff ERA is a little bit inflated, but still, right? No facet of this team right now is playing with consistency. No facet of this team right now is playing up to the level that we expect them to play at, which begs the question, right? Is it time to panic about the Boston Red Sox? But before we dive into that question, a quick word from today's sponsor. To answer that question, yes, I think there is absolutely cause for concern about the Boston Red Sox. I think if you're watching this team right now and you're still happy-go-lucky, I think you're kind of ignoring everything that's going wrong with this team. But I also think that if you're sitting there saying that there's no way this team makes a postseason or that this team just simply doesn't have it, I also think you're ignoring a whole lot of situational stuff that's coming up with the Boston Red Sox down this last stretch of the season. And let me explain what I'm talking about here. Personally, I'm not panicking or I'm not overly concerned that the Red Sox won't be able to make the postseason. For starters, despite the fact that they've been playing, again, this lifeless sort of lost baseball recently, they're still at a 95.8% chance of making the postseason, and that's even higher if you look at Baseball Reference. I think it's important to remember that when you're watching these Red Sox games, it's not just about whether the Red Sox win or lose, it's also about what the teams around them are currently doing, right? The Red Sox not only have to lose these games, other teams need to win them. And right now, you're kind of in a little bit of an interesting situation because 3.5 games up on the Seattle Mariners, which means for the Mariners to overtake you, you need to lose 4 more games than you win during the last 18 games of the season, as well as the Mariners winning 4 more games than they lose this rest of the way. On top of that, to totally drop out of the playoff picture here, they would need to lose 5 more games than they win for the entire rest of the month of September. And again, that's 18 games. So from here on out, if they have anything better than a 6-12 record the rest of the way, it's going to be really, really difficult for that to end up happening, right? The Texas Rangers would have to go essentially 14-4 or 15-3 the rest of the way here for the Red Sox to totally drop out of the postseason. Even if they end up going 9-9 the rest of the way and stay on this 500 path here, the Red Sox would still end with 88 wins and 74 losses, which right now should be a way to get into the postseason. So you sit here and you talk about panicking about the Red Sox playoff chances, just not where they are in the playoffs, just simply whether or not they get into the playoffs. It's a little bit of a different conversation, right? Because it's going to be pretty difficult for the Red Sox because of what they built up throughout the rest of this regular season for them to totally let it drop. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible, right? It's a less than 5% chance it happens, but I'm just saying I think it's likely still that the Red Sox make the playoffs, and I think that's an important thing to remember. And instead of focusing on just the last couple of games or just the last couple of losses for the Red Sox, that we blow it up to the bigger picture, right? That we blow it up and take a look at what the rest of the league is doing. And I think when you do that, things become a little bit easier to digest. However, that does not mean that I'm not concerned about the Red Sox in the postseason, and I'll tell you specifically why. Because it's one thing to sit here and tell you guys that the Red Sox statistically are still most likely going to end up in a postseason, which, by the way, isn't just me being an optimist. No, this is a statistical fact that there is a more than likely chance the Red Sox end up in the postseason, despite what your gut may be telling you. But there's a big difference between simply making it and the state that you are in when you make it. There's a big difference between finishing out this month strong, winding up in the postseason, maybe not on a hot streak, but at the bare minimum, a winning baseball team, and sort of limping into the postseason, falling ass backwards into it because you had a really good June, July, and a decent August, right? And I think right now, that's where the concern lies with this Red Sox team, because I'd be lying to you if I didn't say that there wasn't a chance that that's on the table, end up being like, oh my God, I can't believe we got here, right? Again, going 500 the rest of the way puts them potentially in a postseason spot, but that's not an incredibly successful team right now. And we just talked about this, right? When you look at this team, there's not a ton that gives you a grand amount of confidence that they're going to be able to all of a sudden get incredibly hot and go into the postseason really, really pushing for not only a division, but a top wild card spot, because that's the conversation we were having, a week ago? Right, the Red Sox had just won their series against the New York Yankees, and they swept the Baltimore Orioles. They were coming home to play the Pirates, the Guardians, and the Arizona Diamondbacks. We were sitting there, and we were saying, hey man, there's a legitimate chance that not only do the Red Sox take over and hold on to the top wild card spot in the division, but they create some separation. Now, a week later, you lose your series to the Pittsburgh Pirates, you win your series against the Guardians, but you don't exactly look fantastic in that series, and then now you lose your series to the Arizona Diamondbacks, and all of a sudden, you're exactly 5-5 in your last 10 games. Not exactly the success you wanted to have in that stretch. And all of a sudden you take a look at the lineup and you're sitting there saying, wait a second, where'd everybody go? Right? You don't have Willie Abreu. You lost Roman Anthony. Your offense looks totally different than it did a week ago. Over their last 9 games, the Red Sox have been unable to find consistent pitching, thrown to the tune of a 5.70 ERA with a 4.58 FIP, and the fact that you have 5 unearned runs, which is something that when the Red Sox are going really well, they're avoiding. It's all genuine causes for concern. Because to be honest with you, the reason I'm concerned about this Red Sox team is because there's not really like a, hey, is there a sort of Hail Mary move we can make that's going to totally change the Red Sox lineup or rotation, right? The guys you have now are going to have to be the solutions to this problem. I mean, there are people that could help at AAA. We've heard rumblings that Conley Early could be a name that comes up and joins the Red Sox. We've been talking about Kyle Harrison for what feels like the last month. Justinson Garcia, Christian Campbell, these are all names that could potentially help you offensively and defensively, but ultimately what's going to have to happen here are guys like Crochet, who's had a couple of rough starts lately, Giolito, who, has been able to get the job done fairly well, but ultimately needs to be a bit better. Guys like Bregman, who's been cold for a couple of weeks now. A guy like Jaron Duran, who's been all over the place recently, who hasn't been incredibly consistently productive. These are the answers to your problems. And again, you sit there and you say, okay, where is this spark coming from? Is it a Nick Sogard who had a big moment last night? Is it a Trevor Story, who continues to be incredibly productive for this team? He missed a home run, 4 times? That would have been out in basically every other stadium, but the fact that you were playing in the landscape that is the Arizona Diamondbacks, right? But they need to figure it out themselves, right? That's the answer. It's not so much the Red Sox as a whole could figure it out. It's that these individual players need to come together again. The Red Sox this entire season have been one of these teams that's really good altogether or really bad altogether, with spurts in here where the offense carries and the pitching carries. And right now they need to find a way to break out of this thing. These guys need to find a way. These leaders of this team need to find a way to come back and be leaders of the Boston Red Sox again. What you're seeing is you're relying too much on these super young guys. Peyton Tolle, he's going to look like a rookie at points. Ceddanne Rafaela, right? He's going to go through his ups and downs. That's just who he is, and it's only his second year in Major League Baseball. Relying on guys like Sogard or Hamilton, who are ultimately just key bench players, isn't exactly a recipe for success, and that to me is what concerns me the most about the Boston Red Sox. If they limp into this postseason, is it even worth getting there? To me, it is, because you still get that experience of getting playoff baseball back for the Red Sox. And yes, a lot of these young guys aren't even going to play, Marcelo, Roman, but just simply to understand what it's like to play in October in a Red Sox uniform for a lot of these guys who've never done that is still important. But ultimately, you want to win when you get there. And right now, it's tough to say that I am confident that in a 3-game set in New York, which is where you would be right now, this Red Sox team would be able to take care of business. So I'm not concerned about the Red Sox making the playoffs. I'm more so concerned about what they would look like if they were to get there right now. Does that make sense? But at the same time, too, how many times have we said this season, right? If you are a negative Red Sox fan, or even just a neutral Red Sox fan, I mean, even like I'm a blind optimist Red Sox fan, and even so far this season for me, I've sat there and I've said multiple times, I just don't know that this team has what it takes. Whether it's a bad month, whether it's a bad injury, whether it's a bad stretch, whether it's bad pitching, whether it's bad hitting, right? This entire year, you've had multitude. I mean, there were 10, 15 times this season that even an optimist like me sat there and said, I just don't know about this Red Sox team, which means I'm sure a lot of you guys who are this incredibly pessimistic Red Sox fan have said it 45, 50 times. Yet every single time it feels like this Red Sox team proves us wrong. It feels like when their backs are up against the wall, that's when they play their best baseball. That's when they come together as a unit. And for the most part this season, despite trades, despite injuries, despite bad stretches, despite having at times a lack of talent in certain areas, have found ways to compensate for every single one of those in different places and still find ways to win games. It's really the hallmark of why this team is where it is right now. It's because they fight and they don't stop fighting, right? So it's tough for me to sit here and say that all of a sudden that's going to change. That all of a sudden this is the end of the Red Sox being able to fight for themselves. Yes, Roman Anthony was a major player. Yes, Wilyer Abreu needs to come back as soon as humanly possible. But there were moments this season where you lost your best hitter again. And yet despite that, there's still 15, 14 games over 500 on the season. There have been times where the pitching staff looks like balls, right? You would put 22 starts with Walker Buehler on the mound. You had 5 starts with Dustin May on the mound. There was a point there where you were doing bullpen games, right? And yet despite that, you're 14 games over 500. So to sit here and say that there's no way this Red Sox team's going to fight back after all they've done this season is fight back from different things that have been pushing against them and people telling them they can't do it seems a bit ludicrous to me. Right? It feels like what's the definition of crazy, right? Or insane or whatever it is. It's doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. If you're sitting there right now and you're doing this again where you're saying the Red Sox don't have what it takes, the Red Sox can't do this, I think it's the definition of insanity a little bit, right? So I don't know. I sit here with this, and yes, I'm concerned with the Red Sox, and yes, I think you'd be dumb to not be concerned with the Red Sox, but I also think losing your belief in this Red Sox team just simply doesn't make sense after everything they've gone through, but that's just my opinion. So let me know in the comment section down below, where are you guys at? I'm assuming a lot of you guys are panicking about the Red Sox. Tell me why. I also assume a lot of you guys think the Red Sox are in trouble. Tell me why. Let me know all your thoughts. As always, if you made it to the end of this video, do me a favor. Make sure you guys have hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. If you're new here, we talk Red Sox content almost every single day. Also, make sure you guys have hit the like button on this video as well. It just simply helps out a ton. Best way to let me know you're enjoying the content. Thank you all very much for clicking on this one, and I will see you in the Red Seats.